Hello there, everybody. It's me, Garrett Kidney, the co-host of You've Got to Be Kidding Me on the Voices of Wrestling Podcasting Network.
And I am Liam Jones, my full name, and I'm also a part of the Voices of Wrestling Podcasting Network as a co-host for You've Got to Be Kidding Me.
We are a TNA history podcast that covers TNA 1 month at a time. We cover all the drama, all the matches, all the Vince Russo nonsense you could ever want in your life.
Have you heard of TNA? I bet you have, but would it be funnier if two people made jokes over it the whole time? Probably.
So if that sounds like fun to you, check it out on this very Voices of Wrestling Podcasting Network, and Liam will do bits and whatnot.
This podcast is a member of the Voices of Wrestling Podcasting Network. Visit voicesofwrestling.com to hear the rest of our great podcasts, as well as show reviews, columns, opinions, and updates across the world of wrestling.
To the highway in a brand new day. Gotta let it go. Fast to finger down. Stars tonight together. Hear everyone singing. Ni看到我就怕，头皮发麻，我的手。
How we doing, everybody? Welcome to Open the Voice Gate. I am your co-host, Case Lowe, and I am not joined alongside my friendly co-host, Iron Mike Spears. Mike Spears is on assignment this week. He is on location. He will be back next week. I am not sure if I am allowed to reveal his whereabouts or why he is whereabouting, but nevertheless, you are stuck with me and only me for a show this week as we dive into a few different topics, a few very case-centric topics. We're going to start the show. We're going to do a Gate of Destiny preview. That's why most of you would ever listen to this show, especially if it's just me. We're going to do Gate of Destiny. I'm going to get my picks out of the way. We're going to talk about this show, a show that I think is quite exciting on paper, an interesting show, a lot up in the air, a lot that doesn't jump off the page as being obvious, which I think is always the most exciting place for a Dragon Gate card to be, outside of the Dream Gate match. I think just about everything could go in one direction or the other, and that is always a good place to be, so I am very excited to talk about this Gate of Destiny show. Also, because Mike is not here, and he cannot tell me no, I'm going to do a brief update on my 1993 AAA viewing project. I know everybody's been waiting for it. I know that's what everybody is talking about. The eyeball emojis go up when you start talking 1993 AAA. I start shooting out takes. People start quote tweeting it saying, "Rent's due. Rent must be due." He's tweeting 1993 AAA gifts. We're going to talk about that because I just watched some stuff that, part of me diving into 1993 AAA and this viewing project when I have the time to watch it is I wanted to understand what was so quote-unquote revolutionary about it and to see if it still held up in 2024 eyes. And I've come across some stuff that I recently found to be pretty revolutionary. It might not be the same as the way it was perceived in 1993, but in 2024, with the state of wrestling as it is in America and in Japan, and even to a certain degree in Mexico, certainly it's revolutionary compared to 2024 AAA, but I've just come across some things recently during this viewing project where I've gone, wow, that is absent from wrestling in 2024. That does not exist in any form or fashion, and wrestling is worse off as a result. So we'll do Gate of Destiny, we'll do 1993 AAA, and then I want to talk about the Wrestling Observer Newsletter Hall of Fame again. We obviously did the Hamada show with Cubs 2 weeks ago. Thank you to everybody who checked that out. Thank you to everybody who checked out the J show. I'm very proud of both of those. I'm proud of the Hamada show. I've said on this show numerous times, I don't really like what I do ever. My output is not my favorite thing in the world. But the Cubs show, I'm glad it exists. Hopefully it edges people to vote for Hamada in the Hall of Fame. The public ballots that I've seen so far have been a little disappointing in that regard. I think, despite posting it on Pro Wrestling Only, and resubscribing to the Wrestling Observer newsletter for the sole purpose of posting that podcast on the board. I am not sure it maybe found the audience that it needed to. I sent it to Dave, no response there, not that I was expecting one, but the Hamada podcast I'm incredibly proud of just because it acts as a retrospective, a much-needed one on the career of Grant Hamada. I think we left no stones unturned there. I'm very happy with that. The Jay show's always a ton of fun. The funny thing with Jay is that, you know, we record those shows very early in the morning, U.S. time. It's very late at night, his time. And I always feel like it takes us a little bit to get going. We never totally know where to start with him. We don't know if he wants to do Q&A first. We don't know if he wants to do, you know, the show preview for whatever reason he's coming on to talk about. We don't know if he wants to do that. And then about an hour and a half in, Mike and I will send each other a message and we'll go, okay, let's wrap it up. And then we'll say one thing and it'll set Jay off, and then 45 minutes go by, or an hour goes by, or an hour and a half goes by, and then we stop recording, and then Jay wants to talk for another half hour or another 45 minutes. And it's delightful. It's really awesome. I'm really happy at the fact that we're having Jay on more and that we're doing these Jay shows. And, you know, a lot of people took away the attendance stuff from last week's episode, which makes sense. I personally love the Toriamon X anecdote. I thought that was utterly fascinating, and I always like getting that sort of stuff out of him when he comes on. So thank you to everybody who listened to those. We're going to do one last Wrestling Observer Newsletter Hall of Fame topic this week until the results come out, and then I'll obviously want to break that down, complain about Shima, maybe celebrate Shingo, maybe complain about the Young Bucks, maybe celebrate the Briscoes. We'll see how it goes. But it's somebody who has no relation to the Dragon system. They've never wrestled anybody in the Dragon system unless you're counting like Jimmy Raven, Austin Aries, and Roderick Strong, and I would not do that. Matt Sydal maybe, and even then I don't know if this person ever had a singles match with Sydal. But I want to talk about Samoa Joe. I've got an article coming out on voicesofwrestling.com. I don't know what will come out first, either this pod or that article. But I've talked myself into voting for Samoa Joe this year. There's an article that Kevin Hare wrote on voicesofwrestling.com that we'll talk about when we get to that segment that, you know, made a real case for underrepresented brands of wrestling and underrepresented promotions. And the more that I started thinking about Joe and his history as Ring of Honor champion, but then also the high points of his TNA career, the underrated from a box office perspective NXT career, and then what he's done in AEW over the last year, I now feel pretty strongly that Samoa Joe deserves a place in that Hall of Fame. So we'll talk about that when we get to it. But let's do Gate of Destiny first, and then a lot of people, rightfully so, again, can exit out and move on with their lives. But Gate of Destiny, it's coming up this Sunday, November 3rd, from Edion Osaka #1. Off the bat, I get confused on this every year. This show always aligns with daylight savings time in the U.S., and I never remember what the protocol is. So Jay has it listed as a 1 a.m. Eastern start time for Gate of Destiny. I'm trying to watch the show live because it's a Sunday. I'm going to have the ability to watch the show live. I don't know when this show begins. If it's... you know what? I'm not even going to go through the possible scenarios. Somebody in the Discord, open the VoiceGate channel, Voices of Wrestling Discord, tell me when this show begins, and tell me if I'm going to be affected by daylight savings time. I'm always confused by this. I don't feel like this show normally starts this early. Maybe I'm wrong, but it is a Sunday in Japan, so it's a bit of an earlier start. So maybe it doesn't change anything. Maybe it is a 1 a.m. Eastern, midnight Central start time this year, and that'll be super, super easy for me, and I'll hopefully be able to watch the show live. At the very least, the back half of the show I really want to watch unspoiled. But somebody answer me that, because I'm confused every single year. I never remember what the protocol is. I feel like I get it wrong no matter what I do, and I do not want to do that this year because this is a very good-looking show. You know, the main event is Yamato and Kano. I love Kano. I think he's a phenomenal wrestler in Pro Wrestling Noah. I think much like his Noah counterpart, Alejandro, and if I wanted to be truly cheeky, his Noah counterpart, Kaito Kiyomiya, I think they are better Dragon Gate wrestlers than they are Pro Wrestling Noah wrestlers. So anytime that Kano can get in the mix in Dragon Gate, I am all for it. I am going to choose to believe that he and Yamato are going to have excellent chemistry. I actually think they're very similar wrestlers that come from a very similar mindset, where they have an MMA background in a lucha wrestling environment. Kano, of course, being a Michinoku Pro trainee. I think these guys are going to mesh incredibly well. I also, and this is just pure speculation, we know the tear that Yamato is on. We know Yamato's mindset with this Dreamgate run. He feels like he has something to prove on behalf of Dragon Gate as the spokesperson and the figurehead and the face of this company. Still, I don't know. If I was Kano, I would feel pretty unsatisfied with my current career. Maybe not the entire thing, but 2024, 2023, 2022, this recent era of pro wrestling Noah, if I were Kano, I would feel like, man, a lot of stones unturned. A lot of things that we could have done better, a lot more money that could have been made, but Noah is Noah. The way that promotion has fallen off from a public interest standpoint, from the literal start of the N1 through the second to last night of the N1, and then the finals happened, and everybody collectively just threw their hands up, Seinfeld gift style. I was on record. I was enjoying Noah as a promotion more this year than I had in 6 or 7 years. Because, the pandemic had some real high points, Shiozaki Nakajima being one of them. But I didn't love the promotion. I was pretty out on Kiyomiya still. You had Muto running around being an asshole. There was a lot not to like. I mean, we have to go back to the Noah the Reborn era to find a time in which I was enjoying Noah more on a show-in, show-out basis. And I was watching a lot of Noah shows, not just the Korakuen shows, not just the big shows. They had me checking out spot shows, which for Noah is always a risky endeavor. But I was really enjoying what I saw. And then the N1 happened, and I have not watched Noah since, and none of the results that I've read have inspired me to watch Noah to any degree. Any degree. That is a promotion that, once again, is horrifically lost, directionless, misusing people, uninteresting at best, actively bad at worst. So I am glad that Kano is coming to main event Gate of Destiny. He and Yamato is a super unique matchup. It is the one thing on the card that I don't think the outcome is in doubt. To me, the greater question is, will they set up something for Final Gate here? You obviously have King of Gate coming up. King of Gate could very easily decide who's going to wrestle Yamato at Final Gate, but it's not a guarantee. Weirder things have happened. I'm curious to see if there's any sort of post-show angle. I think a lot of that will depend on whether or not there is a heel unit by the time that the Dream Gate match is over, because there's a chance that there's just not. But it is a really interesting match. Yamato's going to be victorious. I look forward to see who he's going to wrestle against next. And for Yamato, I am just hoping for more of the same. The Ben match I thought was excellent at Kobe World. I did not like it as much as others, but I really liked it. I thought the Kakuta match, which for whatever reason seems like it was a million years ago, that match was phenomenal. My favorite Yamato match of this reign so far. And then he had the Ishin match, which was a car crash and an excellent one at that. And I thought that was really strong. So hoping Yamato continues to be an excellent Dreamgate champion, we will see what he does against Kano. Semi-main event. Losing unit disbands, 3-way 6-man tag team match. It is always a dangerous proposition, and I am all for the Dreamgate match going on last. But it is always a dangerous proposition when there is a unit disbands match and a Dreamgate match on the same show. Final Gate 2020, perfect example of this. They do RED versus Toryumon Generation in the semi-main event. They do Shun Skywalker versus Ben K in the main event. That Shun-Ben match is now remembered for the knee strike that knocked Ben out cold, the moonsault that the referee did the fake 3 count on, and then the awkward finish that was. That match should be remembered for overcoming shock and awe for the first half of that main event. It has never, in my time reviewing Dragon Gate 9 years for VoicesOfWrestling.com, it has never been harder to focus on a Dreamgate match than it was the first half of Ben and Shun. Because even after the post-match cleanup, and they might have gone to intermission, they might have just done Shun and Ben in the second half of that show. I can't remember now, but that sounds right. I was still digesting everything that I saw from one of the greatest Dragon Gate matches in the history of the promotion. My jaw was on the floor. I was focused on Konomama Ichikawa and the fact that he had an Inabauer German suplex on SB Kento. I was focused on the fact that Kento and Kakuta ran through the Toryumon generation, just absolutely destroyed them by the end of the match. It was one of the most shocking things that I had ever seen. It was so hard to focus on Shun and Ben, and then they won me over, and then Ben got knocked out, and then it got passed around on Reddit, and then I was grumpy for the rest of the day. But we're in a situation again. Kano is going to be in a really difficult position if this match even lives up to half the hype that I think it has right now. This feels like a real main event. This feels like a really hot match. It has been Kei Rita and Mochizuki Jr. of Gold Class against Hyo, Luis Monte, and Jackie Kame of Big Hug against Coach Minoura, Ishin, and Jason Lee of Z-Brats. It's a fascinating Z-Brats trio. It is a fascinating Z-Brats trio. Minoura, Ishin, and Jason, no Shun Skywalker. Jay alluded that they might do this on the podcast last week, which would give them a chance for Z-Brats to lose. I would assume then a chance to kick Kai out of the unit, because you have to remember Z-Brats is technically Kai's unit, not Shun's. And then you could have Shun Skywalker reshape the heel unit in his own light, unless, of course, Shun Skywalker turns face. I've seen some people talk about that. With Yamato as the Dream Gate champion, I think that is a horrible idea. I would hold off on that for as long as possible. Shun Skywalker has essentially been a heel for 2 years now. It is not stale in any way. It feels like he has about a million other things on the roster that he could do while heel that I would rather him do, because I do not want them to rush this babyface turn, because I think they have a chance. And it's hard to say, that anything is a definite guarantee in this Japanese market, especially, the way the economy still is, the wrestling economy specifically. But when they turn Shun face, they could really be in for something special. And it is rare in wrestling that I want to hold off on that special thing, that I am telling everybody, wait, stop the truck, let's not go any further. We don't need to turn Shun face. We do not need to turn Shun face. I am okay with him being a heel for another year. Check in with me in October or November of 2025. And there's a chance that in October or November of 2025, I will say, talk to me in 2026. Maybe then I will be ready to turn him. But I am not there yet. So for that reason alone, I do not want Z-Brats to lose this match. I think Minoura, Ishin, and Jason have been phenomenal in their roles. Jason was somebody that pretty much hit the ground running as a heel. Kind of one of those where we went, oh, I didn't know he had this in him. It reminds me a lot of when Pac, and this was on 205 Live, the first time that he turned heel, he had been the same guy for his entire career, and there was a comfort blanket in that, right? Like, we knew what Pac was, and we knew who he was, and what he did, and how he acted, and then he turned heel, and it was like, wait a minute, hold on. You're telling me this guy that was already one of the best wrestlers in the world was also capable of this? That is absolutely insane. And Jason is a degree of that where it's like, man, I had no idea he was going to be this convincing and this compelling of a heel character, and he did it from the jump. I think that is super, super interesting. Ishin, man, it took him forever, is the opposite of Jason Lee. It took him forever to figure out who he wanted to be and what he wanted to do inside of a wrestling ring, but he got there. He is encroaching on modern-day Dick Togo territory. He is a big man that has incredible footwork, and he can brawl. So this is the kind of match where you think Ishin would shine, because he can do the fast-paced Dragon Gate sequences that we're all going to expect in a match like this, but also, he's in Z-Brats. Z-Brats have a certain tone, and I think Ishin fits that tone quite nicely. So I would expect Ishin, perhaps more so than anybody, even Hyo or Mochizuki Jr. or Rita, to be the guys that really, really shine in this match. Minoura, we'll see. The career of Coach Minoura, the amount of time on this earth that I have spent analyzing it, both on and off microphone, I don't know what we're going to get from him. I do not know. There's a very strong chance he plays into the finish, whether that be pinning Rita, which I think is a really strong possibility. I would probably put that at the odds-on favorite, him giving Rita the Golden Rose, ending Gold Class, forcing them to figure out what they're going to do next. Perhaps that is Golden Hug. Big Class. We'll see what they do there. I think that's a real possibility. I think he's going to be involved in the finish no matter what. It feels like something Coach Minoura is going to do. Just feels like they're going to make him a big deal in this match, even if Ishin and Jason are admittedly more interesting. But this is partially his story. You know, he has the story with Ben. He has the story with Rita. He and Junior have great chemistry. But I would keep Gold Class and Z-Brats going. You know, I remember in 2015, they had a situation where they did in the August 2015 Cork and the losing unit disbands match between the Millennials and the Jimmies and Mad Blanky, and the Millennials lost that. And then they came around to Dangerous Gate, and that's when they did Mad Blanky versus Jimmy's unit disbands, and that's when Kness turned babyface and joined the Jimmies. It was this great moment. The three-way match gets lost due to history. It might be the better of the two unit disbands matches, but everybody, rightfully so, remembers the Kness moment. I could see them doing a similar scenario here, where Big Hug loses, and I think they should. I am all for Big Hug losing, if anything, just to hopefully rebound Jackie Kame a little bit, because I cannot believe how far he's fallen since joining Big Hug. And then I could see them at that first December Cork and doing Gold Class and Z-Brats in a unit disbands match, and that is where Minoura pins Rita. That is where we get rid of Gold Class once and for all. That feels like the story. I'm really all for that. It feels silly, given how involved Shun has been in the Minoura Rita story this summer, and his history with Ben K, and the fact that I am just chomping at the bit, waiting for him to get his hands on Mochizuki Jr. again. It would feel silly to end Gold Class and not have Shun involved. Some people might say, well, Monte, Hyo, Kame, Shun has a rich history with all of those guys. Shouldn't Shun be in the match if Big Hug is going to be the unit that goes away? But I would argue that Big Hug doesn't matter. And that is the greatest argument I have for them no longer being a unit, is that Big Hug simply doesn't matter. They're not over. I remain incredibly bullish on all of these men's futures, but I am less and less bullish each day that they are in Big Hug. So my vote, what I think is going to happen, is that Big Hug will lose. They will then, in the December Corkin show, the first one, do unit disbands, Gold Class, and Z-Brats, and we will see Gold Class away on that show. Also on this show, you've got the Twin Gate match, Dragon Kid and Naruki Doi, KZ and Flamita. I need Big Hug, or I guess rather no hug, Dragon Kid and Doi, the opposite of Big Hug. I need them to have a great match here. They had such a strong start to the year. The Rey Day Parejas tournament, the match against Kiyomiya and Alejandro, the four-way at Kobe World, and they've been quiet ever since then, and that is because they were paired with Jiro at Dangerous Gate, and they did not have a chance to have a great match. I am still hoping we get a Cork in defense from them, much like in the same way that when Yamato won the Dreamgate belt, I was hoping we got a Cork in defense from him, and we did, and it was awesome. I am going to side with Doi and Dragon Kid here, just because I think it's the safer option. You know, I would assume, I don't know this for a fact, I would assume Flamita's in through Final Gate? Final Gate's earlier this year. I would assume that he'll be home in Mexico for Christmas, but because Final Gate's earlier, I would assume that he's there. But let him work an 8-man tag on Final Gate. Give Doi and Dragon Kid one more great title defense here. Have them drop the belts at the end of the year, and we will all move on and be happy. This should be an excellent match. You know, this is one where, again, there's a lot riding on it in terms of Doi and Dragon Kid being the tag team of the year. For Flamita, you know, if he goes out and crushes it in this match, and I think there's a really strong possibility that he will, he is somebody who will land very comfortably in my SFM 50. And for KZ, you know, we're approaching year 9, or rather concluding year 9 of him being a world-class professional wrestler. And I do the same thing every year. You know, some years it's more obvious when he's flirting with that Dreamgate belt. But on years like this where he's a background player, you still look at your match of the year spreadsheet, all the matches at 4 stars or higher, and you go, man, there is a lot of KZ on this list. And so I would expect this match to be another match that gets etched into the spreadsheet, another match where KZ is utterly fantastic, but another match where KZ loses. As for the Bravegate belt, Daya and Tanaka, it's tough, right? It's tough because they're doing Daya and Yamato at Korakuen, and that seems to be the main event. And if that's the main event, it's going to be Dream versus Brave, Daya versus Yamato. I get it. Not exciting. I think Tanaka is one of the more exciting wrestlers on the planet right now, especially young wrestlers on the planet. The opposite of KZ. A guy that, when I look at my spreadsheet, has not had a ton of matches at 4 stars or higher this year. But when I watch every Kobe show and every Fukuoka show and every Kyoto show, I leave going, man, Tanaka was one of the best guys on that show. He is one of the best wrestlers on a roster that I feel is the best roster in wrestling, AEW notwithstanding, because they don't know how to use a lot of those guys. In terms of bang for your buck, it's the Dragon Gate roster. And Tanaka is right there with so many of these guys, and it's not a matter of opportunity with him. He is going to be in the ring with great wrestlers, and he is going to have great matches. He has already done that. He's going to continue to do that. I want him to push Daya. That's the interesting thing with this match is I think this could end up being way more of a Tanaka-style match, which I think we have the blueprint for now, than a Daya match, and I think that would be a really welcome change to a Brave Gate run that's been good. It's Dragon Daya. I like him way more as a tag team wrestler and as a trios wrestler. I feel like as a singles wrestler, we've kind of seen the output. It's best case scenario 4, maybe 4.25 on a really really good day. Maybe he and Yamato get to 4.25, but we kind of know who Daya is, and that's not a bad thing. He's not a bad wrestler. He's still incredibly popular. But as a singles wrestler, we kind of know where he tops out at now. And the question is going to be, Tanaka, 18 months into his career, can he push Daya to a higher level than Hyo did? Can he push Daya to a higher level than SB Kento did? I feel very confident in that answer. I feel like Tanaka can do that. I would be so much more interested if Tanaka was the Brave Gate champion. I think that Yamato match is a red herring, though. I think Daya's going to win this match. I think they clearly see something not in Daya as a long-term entity, but they see something in Daya right now. And I think they're trying to capitalize on that. And I don't think they're wrong for that. But we'll see what happens. I want Tanaka to win. I think Daya is going to win. Darkside Hulk and Shun Skywalker, fascinating match here. It's been a really long time since we've seen BB Hulk have any sort of singles match of substance. The last one you can go back to is, I'm looking at his cage match here. He's got a 10-minute draw with Big Boss Shimizu at the October 2022 Korakuen. Let me tell you, I do not remember that match. I would love to know why they went to a 10-minute draw. That caught me off guard as I opened this up. That was not the opening match on the show. That must have been a 3-match. Oh, no, was it a... No, I don't know what this was. They did Diamante Kame. That went 3 minutes. They did Shimizu Hulk. That went to a 10-minute draw. They did KZ Hyo. That went 7 minutes. And then UT and Kai went to 4 minutes. So that must have been some sort of tug of war between RED and Vibes at that point. It's funny, I do not remember that at all. I was going to point to the Jason Lee match from Edion Osaka number 2. That was the King of Gate quarterfinal that year when Jason Lee got kicked in the head really hard, and that led to the Coach Minoura debacle of the summer of 2022. It's all because of that Jason Lee and BB Hulk match. I feel like that's the last time we saw him in a really meaningful singles match. And before that, you'd have to go back to Gate of Destiny 2021 with Yamato and Hulk, a match that I know I liked a lot more than Mike did. Mike was really, really sour on that. It was not a great match. It was very good, though. And that feels like the last big-time Hulk singles match that we got. I don't think this is going to be an epic. Quite honestly, I hope it's not. I hope it looks like Fry and Takayama. I hope these guys beat the shit out of each other. And we'll see what happens here. I have no read on what they're doing with Hulk next. I have no read on if this will play into the unit disbands match or not. So to me, the business end of the card starts with this match. It is Hulk and Skywalker, and I think it's something you have to pay attention to. Something else you have to pay attention to, Konami Ichikawa versus Dump Matsumoto. No notes, 5 stars, a perfect match. Triangle Gate match, Strong Machine J, Big Boss Shimizu UT versus Kai, Homare, and Demus, making his Dragon Gate return. They're not going to beat this Natural Vibes team with Kai, Homare, and Demus. I think everybody can relax. I think there's been some conjecture, some concern, and I'm not saying, but some concern that maybe this Vibes run will come to an end by way of this match. I do not think so. This Vibes team, as it stands, they are the 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. They are the 7th longest Twin Gate reign of all time. In terms of defenses, they are getting up there. I think, as I try to shuffle through cage match here real quick. Of course, I do not have this in my notes. They have some of the most defenses of all time. They are very quickly creeping up on the original Vibes trio that has the defense record. This was KZ, Susumu, and Genki. They had 6 successful defenses after their title win, and this current Vibes team has 5. So this will be, they're not losing. This will be 6 if they win.
Save big on all your Halloween needs, all in the Kroger app. Get bone-in pork back ribs for $2.97 a pound with your card and a digital coupon. Then get 9.8-ounce packages of jumbo blueberries for $3.99 each with your card. Shop these deals at your local Kroger, less than 5 miles away. Or tap the screen now to download the Kroger app to save big today. Kroger, fresh for everyone. Prices and product availability subject to change. Restrictions apply. See site for details.
There's no reason to put this belt on D-Moose. I would imagine he goes home right after this show. I don't know if we'll see him again for the rest of the year. Maybe he sticks around for that Corkin. Not the end of the world if he does. I think he's fine. If he and Kai want to have a grimy little undercard match, go for it. I am just way more curious about Homare in this match more than the result, because I don't think the result is in question. Homare, 2 months into his career, big pay-per-view match. It's early on the show. I don't think this is going to go super long. I don't think they expect a ton from this. But, man, what a big spot for Homare. Good for him. What an intriguing match. But Vibes, I would assume, will retain there. You have the 8-man tag team match brought to you by Sunward Inc. I don't know a ton about the background of this match. All I know is that it is Ultimo, it is Takashi Yoshida, it is Problem Dragon, and it is Katika Dragon against Masaki Mochizuki, Don Fuji, Genki Horiguchi, and Toru Owashi. This will be your touch football match of the night. I do not know who is going to be under that mask of the mysterious wrestler. I look forward to it. Should be fun. Should be harmless. Opening match, Madoka Kakuta and Ryu Fuda. They are going to wrestle Susumu Yokosuka and Kagetora. Please give this match some time. Please give Fuda something to live for, something to chew on, something to bite at. This could be really, really fun. He's obviously taking the pin. There's no way, even Kagetora, there's no way Fuda is pinning Kagetora in this match. Kakuta, the odd man out with both of his partners being in that Brave Gate match. But, man, fun opener. Dark match, I hope this makes the Dragon Gate Network. Kanda and Sahara versus Ho-Ho Loon and El Pantera Jr. What a collection of names. Let me tell you right now, Open the Voice Gate 2029. We will be going through Cage Match during the last segment of the show, and we will find this dark match, and we will ooh and ah over the collection of names involved in that. What a fun match that is. I hope we get that on the network. That is your Gate of Destiny preview. I think this is going to be a really good show. You hope the Dreamgate match delivers to the degree that it should, which is, I would say my expectations would be just shy of a Match of the Year contender. Is that too much expectation to put on them? 4.5 stars feel like something that Yamato and Kano are very capable of doing. That is the ballpark they should live in. That is where they should be. The unit disbands match, I don't see any way that disappoints. That should be phenomenal. Shun and Hulk is super interesting. Daya Tanaka, it might be 3.25 stars, and we go, oh, that was fine. And it might be a really great match. I hope it's a really great match. Rest of the show, at best, very fun. Very fun looking lineup. So we will be back with Mike next week to talk about that show. In the meantime, we're going to talk about 1993 AAA here. This promotion is pretty good. Pretty fun watch. The last time we talked about this, I had just got into Triple Mania 1993, the first one. And where I'm at now, I just finished La Revancha, which was the August 28th show in Los Angeles. And so I'm on this, 4-month run of this promotion where so much happens. And right after Triple Mania, not a ton happens. I started to lose interest a little bit just because it wasn't really lighting my world on fire. They kind of had a hard reset. And there's a few weeks there where the TV, and I'm not watching full TV episodes, I'm watching main events and anything else that looks interesting. And there's a few TVs where it's not exciting. The main events are not good. There's not a ton of the undercard that really rocks my socks. And then you get into June, and you get this Lizmark Jerry Estrada feud, which is not one that I would have earmarked as anything special. But they really, really do incredible work. You know, there's a June 4th, 1993 match. It's trios Lizmark, Mascara Sagrada, and Octagon versus El Satanico, Jerry Estrada, and La Parca. More on Satanico and Octagon in just a minute. But my God, Parca is unreal in this match. He is biting Octagon's mask off at one point. And then Estrada and Lizmark have this incredible chemistry for two guys I don't really think much of. They absolutely bring out the best in each other. That leads to a June 18th Mexican National Light Heavyweight Championship match. And my God, it is an incredible match. It is an incredible old school lucha title match. Estrada, I really do not think much of. Lizmark is fine at best. But that is such a gem. As you go through 1993 AAA, the debut of Satanico, he comes in June, and he is the first of the Infernales that end up jumping. He is the first one to jump. I'm a little disappointed because when it's just him, he primarily squares off with Octagon, and his chemistry with Octagon reminds me a lot of Sua and Dragon Kid, where you have this bulky, hard-hitting middleweight in Satanico, and then you have this flippy junior heavyweight who knows how to get his ass kicked in Octagon. It's much like Sua and Dragon Kid. And their chemistry throughout these trios matches is incredible. They have a bunch of good ones. The problem is that Infernales come in, which is going to be El Satanico, MS Uno, and Pirata Morgan. I like Pirata Morgan, but these guys as a trio, they get set up immediately with Los Hermanos Dinamita, and these matches are just not interesting. You know, this is sort of the perception of lucha that I had in my head before I really started diving into it. It's a lot of matches with a lot of stomps and kicks, and Satanico is very good, and Pirata Morgan has his moments. MS Uno does nothing for me. And then on the brother side, Cien Caras, huge star, not a very good wrestler. Mascara Año, not much there. Universo, not much there. It's just they have a number of trios matches in the Build de la Revancha, and none of them are that great. And they sort of bog down these TV tapings. It reminds me a little bit, to tie back into Dragon Gate, of like 2017, where you knew the semi-main event was going to be this awesome Maximum multi-man tag, where it'd be like Yoshino, Doi, and Jason against whoever. It didn't matter who they were against. It was going to be great. And then you'd have to have a Tribe Vanguard match in the main event. It'd be like Yamato and Maria and Hulk against Antias. And you'd be like, oh, man, this sucks. This sucks so bad. I don't want to watch this. Why can't everything be like the Maximum match? And you have a little bit of that because as you get into July and August, you have the Blue Panther versus Love Machine feud resume. This is something that was a big deal in EMLL in 1992. And then they resume the feud here, July 18th, 1993, in front of 20,000 people. Blue Panther, Love Machine, Mask versus Hair. I would recommend watching the following. I think this is the most essential stuff that I'm going to talk about here. Watch the Mask versus Mask match from EMLL in 1992 between these two. And then watch the following multi-man match. I would highly recommend giving the July 2nd match, Blue Panther, Fuerza Guerrera, and La Parca versus Eddie Guerrero, Love Machine, and Lizmark. Give that match a watch. I would say maybe the best match I've seen so far in 1993 AAA. I went 4.5 stars on it. You can then go straight to the July 18th Mask versus Hair match. Watch that. You got to watch the EMLL match first to understand the finish. Watch that. And then the next week, July 23rd, is Santo, Eddie, and Love Machine versus Blue Panther, Fishman, and Fuerza Guerrera. This is historic. This is really what I want to talk about here, is after the Hair versus Mask match, they do a double turn. This is the crazy part. They do a double turn where it's very clear Love Machine is turning Rudo and Blue Panther is turning Technico. And as Dave notes, and like every observer during this time period, he's like, I don't understand why Blue Panther is a Rudo. He's the best technical wrestler. The crowd loves him. It just doesn't make any sense. So they do this double turn where Love Machine goes Rudo, Blue Panther goes Technico. But the next week on TV, it's Santo, Eddie, and Love Machine as Technicos against Blue Panther, Fishman, and Fuerza Guerrera as Rudos. And this is the match where Love Machine Art Bar puts on the Santo mask in the crowd. He beats up Eddie Guerrero, and by the time Eddie Guerrero comes to, he thinks that El Hijo del Santo was the one that beat him up outside. He turns Rudo, joins Love Machine. They beat down Santo, and as the Rudos are exiting, meaning Panther, Fishman, and Guerrera, the crowd goes insane. They go insane when Blue Panther turns his head, walks back down to the ring, doesn't get in, but hypes up the crowd as he walks in a circle around the ring, and then gets in and makes the save. And the beauty of this is not the Eddie turn, which was a completely insane and asinine idea. I cannot believe it worked. The beauty of this is not that. It is not the Panther save. It is the fact that after the Panther save, Fuerza Guerrera comes down, the all-time asshole that he is, and he attacks Blue Panther, further cementing Eddie's a Rudo, Love Machine's a Rudo, and Blue Panther is a goddamn Technico from this point forward. This is one of the best angles I've ever seen. This is a phenomenal match. I love the match, before any of the Eddie stuff. It's so good because it's a lot of Love Machine. It's a Love Machine match at the start where it's a lot of taunting, it's a lot of crowd work, it's a lot of heel shenanigans. And then all of a sudden, Santo and Blue Panther come in, and they have this beautiful mat wrestling classic. And then anytime Panther gets ahead of Santo, Love Machine comes in and stomps on Panther. And it happens once, and Santo goes, hey, man, I don't need that. Go back to the apron. And then it happens again. And then Eddie pulls him away. He's like, hey, man, what are you doing? This is sort of Santo's fight right here. What are you going to do? And then the match just, it turns into just, we use the word cinema with a lot of shitty wrestling. This was cinema for some of the best wrestling storytelling that I have ever seen. That leads us to La Revancha a month later in LA. And the real match here is, Santo, Octagon, and Panther, now as Technicos, against Eddie, Love Machine, and Fuerza Guerrera. And it's funny when you go back and read the PWO thread on this match, because a lot of people watched this through the yearbooks that were done at the time. And they don't have the context of all of this TV, and I really think to fully appreciate this, you have to watch all of the TV, because the thing that has shocked me most about Love Machine and Eddie as a tag team, and my God, have I loved Love Machine during this viewing project. My knowledge of Love Machine was primarily Joe Lanza talking about the hypothetical of him showing up in ECW had he not passed away. I had never really seen him before. He's unbelievable. I mean, holy shit, what a pro wrestler Love Machine was. And the crazy thing is, he and Eddie, the first week they show up on TV as the heels, they have this act dialed. It is at 10, if not 11 out of 10. They are going a million miles an hour in the best way possible. They hit the ground running with this genius concept, this genius gimmick. They have it dialed in immediately. And so you get to this La Revancha match, and they're stalling for the first 10 minutes. And I could see how that would put some people off. It does in the PWO thread where they're like, God, just get to the match. It's the first 10 minutes are Eddie and Love Machine stalling and doing all these heel shenanigans. But having watched the TV every week, no notes. These guys are unbelievable. And I said this in 2021 during Greatest Wrestler Ever. I will end with this. It's very funny to me how many people cite Eddie Guerrero as an influence. And I understand that he is WWE corporate friendly and Hispanic friendly, and there's a lot of mileage you can get out of just saying his name as an NXT wrestler, let's say, hypothetically, in a video package, hypothetically. Eddie Guerrero and the things that made him great are almost completely absent from pro wrestling today. Nobody works like Eddie. Nobody bumps like Eddie. Nobody has his charisma. Nobody has the package that he had. And it's a shame. It is an absolute shame that he gets name-checked and is probably remembered more for driving a lowrider to the ring than any of the success that he had actually in the ring. Because I look at Eddie work, even in 1993, forget what he did, in WWE in 2002, 2003, 2004. The things that made him great, almost entirely gone from wrestling today. Final note, I'll end with this. I've got an article coming to voicesofwrestling.com on Samoa Joe and his Wrestling Observer newsletter, Hall of Fame candidacy. I was going to go through a Big Joe thing on this pod initially, because I wasn't sure I was going to have time to write the article. And all I have done today is write this article, and I finished it, and it's been sent off to Rich. And again, I don't know which will come out first, either the article or this podcast, but I was very inspired by the article Kevin Hare wrote for voicesofwrestling.com last week, where he talked about, you know, Shima and Hamada and a guy like Jun Kasai, who I know Kevin is a big advocate of. And, you know, I've told Kevin, I'll never vote for Jun Kasai, but I love the idea of him being on the ballot. I respect where Kevin is coming from. I respect Kevin's wrestling opinion. I love when Kevin Hare gets involved in the discourse. He does not do it often enough. We, unfortunately, only spend our time talking about dumb punk bands and never about wrestling. And then when Kevin talks about wrestling, I'm like, oh, that's right. This guy has really, really interesting opinions. I'm so glad he spoke up. And for Hall of Fame season, you know, I thought he wrote this really thought-provoking article. I would recommend going and reading it if you haven't already. And he doesn't get into a whole thing on Joe, as my dog sneezes behind me. I don't know if that got picked up or not. He doesn't get into a whole thing on Joe, but he does name check him. And Joe being mentioned in the context of that article for underrepresented figures and styles and promotions in the Observer Hall of Fame really lit a fire under me. And I started thinking about Ring of Honor and the greatness that was Gabe-era Ring of Honor and its representation in this Hall of Fame. And right now, the only people that have any ties to that era of Ring of Honor are Bryan Danielson and AJ Styles. Those are the guys that are in. Danielson would have never gotten in based on just his Ring of Honor work. I would have voted for him. I'm sure other people would have, because I think he's one of the greatest wrestlers of all time. But he would have never gotten in without the WWE stuff. And I get that. And that's not wrong. That's just the reality of the situation. AJ Styles, I actually think, has an incredibly underrated ROH catalog, especially in the Feinstein era, but nobody was factoring in anything that AJ did in ROH outside of maybe popping that Nashville number when he first returned to the promotion. No one was going like, oh man, I gotta really dive into my AJ Styles Ring of Honor collection as I vote for him in the Observer Hall of Fame. I have my own thoughts on AJ in the Hall of Fame that, you know, I'll table for another time, but he is not a guy that you really associate with Gabe-era Ring of Honor. So that leaves the Briscoes and CM Punk, who are on the ballot this year. Punk, I would have voted for had he never returned to wrestling in 2021. I thought he should have been a shoo-in the first time he went on the ballot, and that didn't happen. And I thought last year it was the biggest duh, what are we doing here? And then that didn't happen. So maybe he gets in this year. The Briscoes are one where my process for voting for them last year was I thought about it, and I hemmed and I hawed, and I went, I don't know, you know, what are we gonna do here? And then one day it clicked for me, and I went, what am I doing? Of fucking course the Briscoe brothers are Wrestling Observer Newsletter Hall of Famers. I don't need to think about it. I don't need to be critical. It's obvious. And if the Briscoes had done their body of work in any other promotion, TNA included, they would have been in long ago. They would have been first ballot Hall of Famers, no question. Now, I say that, of course, the Young Bucks didn't get in last year. People are stupid. I don't know what to tell you. But I started thinking with Joe back on the ballot. All right, so there's Danielson and he's in. And there's the Briscoes and maybe they get in. And there's Punk and, you know, he'll probably get in this year. Who else from this critically acclaimed, highly influential time period of wrestling should get in the Observer Hall of Fame? I asked Dave last year to put Gabe Sapolsky on the ballot. I think I would vote for Gabe, no questions asked, and it's unfortunate I'm recording this on the day of the WWE ID news, one of the more evil things I've ever heard of. It's unfortunate to be recording this on this day, but I would vote for Gabe in a second. I don't think there's any question Gabe Sapolsky deserves to be in this Hall of Fame. I will once again ask Dave to put him on. I mean, it's not even close to me. Gabe should be in the Hall of Fame. So if you have Gabe and you have Danielson, and let's say Punk gets in, and by a miracle, let's say the Briscoes get in. Okay, who else is not represented from an era that really should be represented in this Hall of Fame? Well, it's not Austin Aries, as much as I love him as a wrestler and loathe him as a person. It's not Roderick Strong. You know, it's not Alex Shelley. Okay, who else was there? It's not Low Key. I love Low Key, but it's not him. It's not Homicide. I love Homicide, but it's not him. It's Joe. And as I went through Joe's career, I realized that every single promotion that he has ever worked for has pushed him to the top of the promotion, and he has not this incredibly deep drawing resume where it's like, man, Samoa Joe, what a draw. My argument is not that Joe is this incredible draw, but Joe has a way deeper drawing resume than people realize. One of the things that is really hard when it comes to these Ring of Honor guys is that everybody wants to go to live attendance, and first of all, that's lame. If you're talking about Ring of Honor guys and your first thing is, well, the houses, the draw, stop. That is not the way to analyze these guys. I go through some of the live attendance in the Joe article and how it's more impressive given the scale of Ring of Honor than some other guys that were his contemporaries. But this promotion was based on DVD sales. Gabe Sapolsky said that himself. He's like, I'm not worried about the house. I'm worried about the DVD sales. And Samoa Joe sold a lot of DVDs for Ring of Honor. The issue, and I will leave my source nameless on this because I don't know if this person reached out to Kerry Silken because I asked, or if anecdotally Kerry had told them this and they passed the information on to me. But I had a conversation with somebody about Ring of Honor DVD sales this week, and I was told that not even Kerry Silken has a written record of their best-selling DVDs of all time. The best that we have is some, Meltzer notes in the Observers from 2004, 2005, 2006 of, hey, this DVD is outpacing all of the other DVDs before. And guess what? It's Joe versus Punk 2, and then it's Joe versus Kobashi. Those, at that point were the best-selling DVDs in company history. I had a conversation with somebody else, and we both, I would argue as being Ring of Honor historians to some degree, would come to the idea that the Milestone series in 2006 and the Fifth Year Festival DVDs in 2007 would also be some of their best-selling DVDs of all time. And then I heard from another person that said, well, with the Fifth Year Festival specifically, it's the New York City date and the finale date that outsold all of those other shows, meaning that it's Joe versus Morishima from New York City, because Jimmy Ray versus Homicide did not sell all of those DVDs. With all due respect, that was the main event, but Joe versus Morishima was the draw. Joe versus Morishima and Joe versus Homicide and their ROH farewell match, those are the ones that sold a ton. So you have all of this anecdotal evidence that Joe was a draw in Ring of Honor. And then he went to TNA, and he's got the biggest pay-per-view buys of all time with Angle in 2006, Angle's pay-per-view debut, which I also think is worth noting. It's the biggest pay-per-view buys of all time for TNA because it's Kurt Angle, but they weren't doing that with Kurt Angle versus Abyss, or even Kurt Angle versus Christian Cage, or Kurt Angle versus Tomko, or Kurt Angle versus Chris Sabin. It was the Samoa Joe match that was the draw of that show. It was not only is Kurt Angle coming to TNA, Kurt Angle is coming to TNA and he's wrestling Samoa Joe. And so you have to give Joe credit for a little bit of that number. And then you also have Lockdown 2008, which according to Garrett Kidney was the second biggest pay-per-view purchase in TNA history. It was also, at the time, their largest North American attendance in history, meaning that Lockdown 2008, Joe versus Angle, is the most paid-for TNA show in the history of that promotion. Then you have Joe returning to the Indies in 2015, and he was a big draw for the month and a half that he came back to Ring of Honor. I was at Joe versus Elgin in Chicago Ridge, and let me tell you, somebody that had been going to every Chicago Ridge show for the last few years by that point, there were more people in the building for Joe versus Elgin than there had been for anything else that Ring of Honor had brought to Chicago Ridge in quite some time. Meltzer backs that up in the Observer. He does Baltimore TV taping that sold out. He does a Dayton show that had 800 people, which was a lot for Dayton at the time. He does the Chicago Ridge show that had 1,200 people, and then he does the 1,500 WrestleMania weekend attendance crowd with Jay Briscoe, which had already been sold out by the time Joe was on that show, but it was, Samoa Joe working in front of 1,500 people. Not bad. Fitting of that card, some might say. And then you have this NXT run, and I spent a ton of time today combing over NXT houses, and specifically NXT house show houses. And what I learned was that Samoa Joe and Finn Balor were a money program on the road even for certain shows outdrawing the Roman Reigns-led house shows of the time. And then I started going through what Joe did in AEW, and again, he was captain, and I'm not using sinking ship as in they're going to be dead, but he was captain of a ship that was going downhill. Let's just say that by way of MJF and his godforsaken vision for what the company should have been. And Joe has all of these nice TV numbers, and then he's got that World's End pay-per-view, which everybody internally was pretty excited about the number there and the 10,000 people in attendance. And I started thinking about Joe's career and how, for some reason with him, like I think a lot of observer voters right now are voting only on positives and ignoring the negatives. And then for Joe, it's like, well, he had those years in TNA where he wasn't much of a guy, and so he's not a Hall of Famer. It's like, well, wait a minute, hold on. This guy paved the way for what it was like to be a true champion in independent wrestling. He shaped Ring of Honor into this vision, this gold standard of pro wrestling, as much as Danielson did, as much as Kenta did, as much as later Davey Richards would do. They were, if anything, that later era, that Davey, Roddy, Eddie era, they were emulating what Joe did. This is one of the most influential wrestlers in terms of boutique wrestling in the 21st century. Everywhere Joe has went, he has gone to the top of the card, and maybe he has not developed new eyeballs in a mass appeal sort of way towards pro wrestling, but everywhere Joe has gone, there is evidence of him drawing notable houses. And that is really important to know. And I don't know why. Not only is it that, like, hey, a lot of people don't vote for Joe, a lot of people completely disregard Samoa Joe in this process. And the more that I looked into it, the more ridiculous I realized that was. So that article, if it's not already on voicesofwrestling.com, will be on there soon. We will be back next week. Myself, Iron Mike, his return, Gate of Destiny review. It is coming up. I cannot wait. In the meantime, I'm on Twitter @_inyourcase. Mike is on Twitter @_FujiHeya. And we will talk to you next week.
Save big on all your Halloween needs, all in the Kroger app. Get bone-in pork back ribs for $2.97 a pound with your card and a digital coupon. Then get 9.8-ounce packages of jumbo blueberries for $3.99 each with your card. Shop these deals at your local Kroger, less than 5 miles away. Or tap the screen now to download the Kroger app to save big today. Kroger, fresh for everyone. Prices and product availability subject to change. Restrictions apply. See site for details.
Hi, I'm Case Lowe, co-host of the Open the Voice Gate podcast. The one question I'm constantly asked when it comes to Dragon Gate is, how do I get into the promotion? Well, stop asking and start listening to the Open the Voice Gate podcast, released every Wednesday on the Voices of Wrestling podcasting network. For exclusive news and show reviews, look no further than the leader in Dragon Gate coverage, Open the Voice Gate.